The earliest descriptions of unicorns did come from kind of east to west. And he mentions this one guy, Stesius, who actually was a Greek, but he was a physician to a Persian emperor. And he would get reports. So he wrote this multi-volume text called Travels, but there's no evidence that he himself ever went anywhere. So by travels, he meant I heard this from someone that came from somewhere and wrote it down, which was completely legit travel journaling back in 300 BC. The fact that Herodotus actually went to the places he wrote about was revolutionary. And most of all of the travel information prior to that, hundreds of years later, was based on somebody else's account, and you have no idea how far that somebody else's account could go, right? It was like, I'm talking to someone that just came from somewhere, that heard from somebody that said they were this other place, that saw this thing, that you know what I mean? It goes that far. So it's very easy to see how, and I think it is a totally reasonable assumption to think that unicorns came from rhinos. Their initial descriptions, as they mentioned, were fierce, you don't catch it, it will kill you. I don't know about landing on its horn to save its life. This is where it's it diverges into fantasy. The description, which was interesting, that Stesius wrote down, was more equine, but there are antelopes in India also that have really, really long straight horns. And so the description was that the kind of showed it, it's that horsey thing with a red head and multiple colored horns. So that one,
I believe you mean the wild ass from Persia, Christina?
Yes, I apologize. Yes. Yes. But the horn was interesting because it's red, white, and black, which made me think instantly of alchemy, the Negredo, Albedo, and Rubedo phase. So that's interesting. I'll touch on that in a little bit. But there's something else in here that there's a couple things. So this guy, this rather amazing drawing that we see in front of us, is reminiscent of the Elasmotherium, which was a prehistoric precursor to the rhinoceros. Was probably not that big, but very large. And they have found skeletons of them up to 30,000 years ago. So that means that humanity was alive and well, and very much kicking around in their current form at that time. So there's a cultural memory from Siberia to kind of northern India, where the Elasmotherium lived, of a creature with a giant horn that, was horribly fierce. So that's also kind of another interesting segment of information, which is weird because he pictured it in the drawings a bunch of times, but never mentions it. So I like to think that the unicorn descriptions, not only, that's why there's a Keeling, that's why there's a Keating, that's why there's all these different kinds of unicorns throughout, Asia into, Asia into kind of southern and then very Eastern Europe, because there was actually a giant creature with one horn that was probably extremely difficult to kill because it was so intense. It's probably a rhinoceros on steroids with the worst attitude. And, it's that stuff sinks into your DNA as a culture. And as that animal became extinct, it became more and more a part of legend because no one saw them anymore, right? But I'm kind of a firm believer in the mythology has some kernel of truth. It doesn't mean that the whole thing is true. It just means that there's something in there that was inspired by something someone saw, and told a story, and then it becomes a part of legend, then it becomes a part of myth. And especially when it comes to bestiaries, which is one of my favorite wormholes to go down. It is definitely something that somebody saw somewhere, and described somewhat inaccurately. But I think for the unicorn specifically, it's interesting that it has these characteristics that then somehow starts getting transmuted, right? Like it goes on this journey of this Paleolithic creature, like a real creature that probably people told stories about, like, don't go over there. There is a gnarly one-horned, animal that is gonna like fuck you up, right? Like, don't hunt it. It is, like made of like steel and whatever. Like you could, well, they didn't have steel back then, you know what I mean? hard to penetrate with said spear. So it that starts moving, and as that becomes extinct, like then there's a much smaller version, the rhinoceros, that emerges and carries on that legend. And as people start moving around, in larger and larger distances, farther and farther, these stories start moving, which is how we're getting, this very Eastern Siberian, Siberia to like India and then across through into Greece. We're having these stories told. And of course, like the Greeks are just really good at like writing shit down. I feel like they're kind of like the most like efficient like journal creators of ancient times. They're like, oh, got it. They wrote everything down, thankfully. And I think of like all the times like epic libraries were burned and how much more they wrote down than what, like, we have a lot of stuff from Greece, and just to think that there was so much more. Other topic, but like mercifully they like wrote a lot of stuff down, which got passed along through culture. So we get into this like funny place in the medieval times. So I think maybe I will share my painting now. Where are you? Google. Yes. Share. Oh, maybe I'll start with a personal unicorn journey before I get into the painting. How do I want to open this? Okay, there. Yes. So you can see my screen. Yes. Okay. So personally, I think my own personal unicorn journey, which is now appropriate to set the stage, goes back a very long time. I am not a recent unicorn convert. I have been one since I remember. When I was in preschool, I would play this game with a bunch of little boys. It was like me and like 6 little boys in preschool. And I was their unicorn mama, and they were all of my unicorn babies. And we were unicorn Pegasuses, actually, because I wanted both. So I was the unicorn Pegasus mama. They were all my unicorn Pegasus babies. There were 2 swing sets in the field, and those were our tree nests. And then I would enlist one boy that would be the evil wizard. And it was essentially a chasing game, where I would have to get babies from one tree nest to the opposite tree nest without getting caught by the evil wizard. And then free them if they did. It was very complex. It went on for, my entire preschool career. And, so I feel like I have a stake in the unicorn game from very early on. And even, like, I shit you not, like, I have gifts that these little boys would give me in, like, from preschool to kindergarten. Their moms bought it or whatever, but they're like ceramic unicorns that I still have to this day. So, the gift of the unicorn, from these small boys and their moms was very, like, it was very sweet. And I, like I said, I still have some of them. And like unicorns was like, I have so many ceramic unicorns. Like, have you seen the great American classic movie Dodgeball? Right? Have you seen it? Yeah. Okay. So that scene where it's like, what's his name? Like Vince, something, like he walks into like the girl's house And it's like there's unicorns all over, you know, and like she's got posters and like carousel horses, like all this stuff. And he's like, so, you know, and she's like, I like unicorns, you know. And he's like, yeah, that's my life. So anytime anybody would come over to my house in high school, if I was like dating a boy, it was like that's what my room looked like. It was amazing. Highly recommend that movie. Specifically for that scene. So you know, like it's funny because at some point in the unicorn journey throughout our lives, I feel like many of us are kind of like floating around a similar age, right? So from like the 80s, early 80s, like through, it became supremely unpopular to still like unicorns. You know, if you did, everyone thought you were like high maintenance and weird, you know? And I copped to both of those things. So it's okay. I took it. But at some point in there, I was like, fuck it. I'm going to own this. And I started doing this performance character whose name was Baby Barbarella. And she was a unicorn warrior workout queen that sang opera and created Dada poetry through performance happenings. So that is her, that is she. And that is a still from Baby Barbarella, Buns of Steel, which is a workout video that you can follow along with on YouTube. Yep. So, you know, right around this time where I was Baby Barbarella-ing, I feel that, you know, and this wasn't that long ago, which is what kind of like makes me crazy, that there was a revolution stirring. And I fully think that the revolution was because of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, which I will share a clip of. Because of course, as many of us were, I'm sure, in our youth, we were avid My Little Pony fans. I still collect My Little Ponies. They're all over our house. And you know, it was a wonderful thing. You know, it definitely inspired my unicornness from a very early on. I feel that My Little Pony was founded by Hasbro in 1981, which is my year of birth. Actually, it was very close to my birthday in October, which is weird. So I feel that was very cosmic, you know, and we were born very close together, you know, our sun signs are the same. So, you know, and there's a great series on Netflix. It's called The Toys That Made Us. And at some point, maybe one of these times, I will do a deep dive into My Little Pony lore, and we could watch that as part of it. But it is a fascinating history of how the My Little Pony came to be. And you know, so it was very like, there were movies, there was a TV show, it was all about the, you know, little characters, right? So, and then like it was there. My Little Pony never went away. There were weird generations that no one talks about, you know, and then it kind of had a resurgence with the artist Lauren Faust, who was also like us, grew up with My Little Pony, and then was asked to illustrate the new incarnation of them. And that new incarnation was My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. And I think every human, from adult to child, should watch My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, because it deals with real life lessons, you know, such as like, let's communicate through difficulty. You know, I am an individual and so are you, but we can still be friends even though we have differences, you know, and how to communicate effectively your feelings of anger, of sadness, you know, of jealousy, you know. So, I mean, it is like, it's deep shit. It's real medicine. And, you know, just you know, unendingly positive and sweet. And like, there are so many times I like ugly cried in that show, because it's like, oh, that really is so true, you know, like it just hits home. So highly recommended. But I think that kind of started the brony movement, right? We're talking like 2000s. Hi, everybody who is joining. We are talking real quick. We're talking about unicorns this morning. You know, as we do. And yeah, girl, fuck yeah. Okay. I should have gotten mine. I have like my unicorn hat there. All right, I will proceed to give the rest of this talk with this on my head. So, you know, I feel so as that show started to air, it became very popular, obviously with adults, because it is adult themed. Even though it's for children, it actually has like major adult themes in it. I keep trying to avoid this major light. Sorry. Good Lord. All right, there we go. I'm having this like blinding ray of sun. So brony movement started to happen, right, organically, and that is, you know, like men getting into ponies, and there were conventions that started to happen because everybody, you know, it's like nerds love to convene, so conventions happened, and I love it, and you know, so there was this kind of grassroots movement of adult unicorning kind of in the like nerd culture, but then it started like filtering into reality where people would like start calling people bronies, you know, so it's like somehow in the cultural zeitgeist this was like brewing. And then like everything, because this is how capitalism works, somebody somewhere decided to make money off of it. And then right around like, you know, 2000, let's see, what could that have been? I was like 2013, even 14 was maybe like the first time I started noticing unicorn onesies, which I feel that the unicorn onesie was like the harbinger of like capitalist unicorn vomit. You know, like it just happened one day that there was a unicorn onesie available on Amazon. And then there were thousands of unicorn onesies available on Amazon. And then there were thousands more unicorn products available on Amazon. And it was something like I did a search and it was like over 10 million hits just on Amazon alone of unicorn products. And this was 2 years ago. So it went from this thing to be like, oh, I'm a unicorn, right? And I feel like festival culture had something to do with this too. There was this brony thing, festival culture, you know, where like festival culture went from people who just went to festivals for music and art to like everyone going to festivals, you know, and suddenly being like, I just did MDMA for the first time. I'm a unicorn, you know, and like, you know, that chick, we all know that chick. And like, you know, and then suddenly it like, then that bitch needed something to buy for her unicorn costume for the next festival she went to. So like capitalism started, you know, and it became this like groundswell of unicorn shit where it's like absolutely everything you could think of was a unicorn. Absolutely everything you didn't need was a unicorn. And then, you know, it was just incredible the amount of garbage and like crazy things and very cool things were created to fuel this unicorn fervor that was everywhere. You know, it's like I was shocking, you know, as like a honest, true unicorn you know, follower. This was like hard, you know, it's like the thing that, which I feel like that about Star Wars, but like, it's this thing that I love so much in my heart is now smattered across, you know, capitalism's like, you know, dartboard in this like smear. It was so intense, you know, and they're just like, oh, there's another $1 million. There's another $1 million. Like, everybody's a unicorn, you know? And I was like, okay, which is what Friendship is Magic teaches, that we can all be unicorns and we can all, you know, get along, but it still is, you know, it's interesting, right? And the amount of people that I spoke to, because I started interviewing self-described unicorns, you know, I was like, so what made you what made you identify as a unicorn? You know, where did this start for you? And I shit you not, it was like probably 75% of the time it was either I went to Burning Man for the first time, I went to, you know, X Festival, and I did acid, you know. It's like, oh, or some such thing. Usually MDMA or acid, some such thing. And it was like, I awoke to my unicornness. Amazing, you know, okay, you know, and now you're a unicorn and you fully own that and dress like one and prance around. Like, so then it got me thinking that there's this whole other aspect to unicorn consciousness that was on the rise, that was inextricably linked with the consciousness expansion trend, right? And the trend of, you know, everybody going to festivals, you know, experimenting with stuff, and you know, like becoming awake to some other part of themselves that they've never seen before. So that, you know, it's interesting, right? All these things like tie together. And so I started working on a research project and a book entitled Unicorn Consciousness. And that's still in the works, but I made a painting about it instead, for, you know, because at least it takes less time to paint than write a book for me anyway. So I will share this painting. Okay, there we go. So this is said unicorn consciousness. So I will explain this, and then I will go into exactly what unicorn consciousness is all about. So there at the very bottom, we see the Elasmotherium / the Stesius description of the semi-equine horned beast that he wrote in his travels. Yet I will start in the beginning, because this is a mandala. This is a true, so this is based after the Tibetan Wheel of Life. So on the Tibetan Wheel of Life, the demon on top is time. It's Yama, or death, which is the same thing. In this, you know, as again, for all 80s unicorns fans, it is the Red Bull from the infamous Last Unicorn. So the Red Bull is kind of the keeper, you know, the time, the demon, if you will, of the entire circle, the wheel of unicornness. So the very center, this painting began when historically Starbucks came out with their unicorn frappuccino, which we all remember, I think. And I feel like that was the pinnacle of unicorn capitalist consciousness. When Starbucks came out with their unicorn frappuccinos, it was like, wow, we've, you know, there's that like old saying in like movies, it's like, you know, from Happy Days, like they jumped the shark. I feel like at that moment, unicorns jumped the shark. And I do believe that there has been a steady decline since then in cultural consciousness, but, you know, we reached some kind of epitome with that I'm not sure we will ever reach again, you know. So in the very center of this painting, let's see if I can zoom in a bit. Can I zoom in? Are you gonna, too much. There we go. Okay. So in the very center of this painting is Starbuck Kali. So she's got her little star reverse. So she is anti-Kali or anti-Starbuck, but the Kali version. And if you've ever, God damn it, why can't it just be, okay, there. So if you've ever seen the actual Starbucks logo from the Seattle Coffee House, it is a mermaid holding her legs out. And the much more anesthetized version that we see on our cups is nicely crops that part out, but that is actually what's happening there. She's doing a full, you know, like full spread. And so I went back to the original here, and You know, she is the center. She is giving birth to, or I guess it's one or the other. She is giving birth to the unicorn. So this epitome of cultural consciousness has now given birth, and the waters of birth have flowed open, and she is releasing her unicornness out into the world, right? So we've got these unicorns circling around, and then coming up to this top level here. So that is the center, and then the first circle. Then we go to the circle outside, which is where we have the Elasmotherium at the bottom. Then I've got the unicorn on either side from the unicorn tapestries from in the video that he mentioned. And this is a good segue to speak about medieval unicornness. Because of course, as we go from, you know, Cestius explaining kind of this equine creature, somehow this goes into, you know, Europe. And through medieval Europe, I swear, it's like one of those times, if I could just like go back in the future, like there was some crazy shit going on in medieval Europe. So somehow it went from this kind of like very intense, you know, primal beast to being associated, I think maybe because it somehow became white and purity, associated with Jesus. So, but the aspect of Jesus, of his sacrifice. So the unicorn became a metaphor of sacrifice. So if you see medieval unicorn tapestries, that's what it's talking about. It's talking about Jesus on the cross. And it is the virgin aspect, you know, where virgins were the ones that attracted unicorns, became, you know, it's the virgin birth, you know, but there's like an underlying sexuality there, even then, with said unicorns, that they were even, you know, that there's even like a sexual connotation in it at all. So there's this, I'll get into that in a minute, but there's this very underlying, like, you know, and the unicorn myth just goes all over. There's all sorts of things. It just came to me. I don't remember the specific reference, but there is a text that the you know, like early, I would say probably like 100 AD, you know, like 0 to 100 AD kind of era, right? Early. So after kind of where the unicorn was still this primal creature, was described as being attracted to fertile women, and not virgins, but like fertility, right? So there was already something like to this primal beast, right, was already getting looped into like feminine sexuality in this really interesting way. And then by the time the medieval ages came along, it became purity and virgin. You know, and as we all know, virgin initially meant woman unto herself, not actual like, I haven't had sex yet, but I have sex with whoever I please because I am my own person. So that's an interesting correlative there too. So that medieval unicorn in the gate, you know, tied to the pomegranate tree. Pomegranate tree is a tree of fertility, you know, is representing that dual nature already, you know, and even the dual nature of the Christ, right? It's this sacrificial element, but there's about the rebirth, the death and rebirth is the most ancient kind of cosmic mother theme, you know, that's out there. It's like, that's like pre-Paleolithic human had this notion of death, rebirth, and the goddess, you know, so we're already kind of in familiar territory there. So fast forward, I think the unicorn kind of existed in this mode, you know, for a very long time, hundreds of years. So fast forward to 1981, which are the two next ponies here. The unicorns were the Gen 1 My Little Ponies. And then also in the 80s, of course, as I mentioned, I had to have the, you know, Never Ending Stories at the bottom. The Last Unicorn. So I had to have her in here, obviously. So one of my favorite movies of all time. I watched it like every single day, along with Never Ending Story. But, you know, Last Unicorn was like my primal myth. And then at the top, we have Princess Luna and Princess Celestia left to right. So they are kind of the great queens of the My Little Pony Friendship is Magic enterprise. And they are sisters. One deals with the night and dreams, Princess Luna, and Celestia is the daytime, and she deals with society and the sun. So, I mean, talk about like cosmic imagery, you know, it's just, and for a while, like in the beginning of the show, they were at odds with each other. Princess Luna was actually like Nightmare Moon, and she was like the trapped in the moon because she brought on nightmares and freaked people out, and she got mad, and her sister like banished her to the moon. And then Twilight Sparkle, who's like the main character, like had them reconcile and work things out. And so through friendship and love, which is the great kind of alchemical binder, it like had night and day work together in harmony again. So, you know, order was set in the universe through friendship. I mean, you can't make that like that is like mythological cosmic themes in My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. I kid you not. And that is just like one of the many. So this painting is actually a magnum opus. So the magnum opus in alchemy is the alchemical great work. So just like a Tibetan wheel of life, you are supposed to kind of follow from the center out and then back through again in this cyclical wheel of death and rebirth. So if we as a unicorn consciousness are born through Kali, through the Great Mother, you know, we enter into the world and manifest. So we manifest through all of these different, you know, evolutionarily conscious steps, if you will, of each of these unicorns and what they teach us. And then as we get to the top, through friendship, we harmonize our two natures. Through love, through self-acceptance, through, you know, through the great work, through this alchemy, we put our two sides together, only to be reborn again through the middle onto kind of your next layer of the mandala, next level up. And so the reason the Sphinxes of the Never-Ending Story movie are in there, and book, it's in the book too, but is in the movie, it's a little differently written in the book, but in the movie, it's Atreyu has to go through these two Sphinxes, and they, the Southern Oracle, and they will kill you if you don't trust yourself, if you don't believe in yourself. So you have to walk through this. It's like a, you know, they're huge, they're gigantic sculptures that are alive, and they will laser point you with their eyes if you don't fully have your shit together as you're walking through, and everybody dies because they doubt themselves. So there's something, you know, through this alchemy, we over and over in this wheel of life, we are burning away our karma of self-doubt. And as we move through repeatedly, we get higher and higher. We continually go through the Southern Oracle, and at some point we will pass through without any self-doubt altogether. So that is the crux of unicorn consciousness. So the 6 tenets that I came up with of unicorn consciousness is the unicorn code. It is rewilding, empowerment, authenticity and individuality, ultimate compassion, community and uniqueness through community, and lastly, awakening to your true nature. So all of those steps can be found in this painting, but you know, the rewilding of the Elasmotherium, of the wild ass, of all of these things, of the unicorn's essential nature, of this creature that cannot be tamed, you know, and getting in touch with your primal self, right? Empowerment, empowering through not only that knowledge, but this kind of, you know, the next level up here, and the sacrifice, the death, rebirth, you know, there's a lot of great power to be had in looking at things kind of through that bigger picture lens. So coming into your own, taking that rewilding energy and soaking it in, and then living through that is empowerment. And then authenticity and individuality, right? It's like radical authenticity and radical individuality is knowing yourself, your true self, you know, not the self that people want you to be, but the self that is inherently you, and radically fighting for that every single moment of every single day, you know. And then ultimate compassion for yourself through this work, compassion for others and for everyone around you that is going through their own process, compassion, you know, just for everything, you know, like total open-heartedness is true compassion. And then community. But so how to maintain your radical self, radical authenticity through community, where that community respects your authentic nature and also is its own authentic community, right? So everyone in that community is their own authentic selves, and through that we can all work together. I feel like we're building that here. And then, you know, last but not least, awakening through this process to kind of the higher truths, and through, you know, the higher truths that are deep within us. That is the kind of the goal, right? That once we realize all of these things and all of these steps, we integrate it into our nature, we have now leveled up, if you will. And this is one of those, as the mandala implies, this is a circular thing. It doesn't just end here. You keep doing it over and over and over and over again. And the Tibetan Wheel of Life specifically, it and any kind of mandala in that system is meant, you know, as a continual loop. So not only are you living it over and over in this life, you are living it over and over in every moment of every day. And then you live it continually through multiple lives. So this way of working, this alchemical magnum opus of which is what that was about too, a purification of your soul, you know, awakening to your full unicorn consciousness, is a continual practice that never ends. And the awakening just keeps opening more and more and more and more, and revealing your true unicorn nature.